is good coffee. Oh. Hello. Sorry about that. I didn't see you there. Allow myself to introduce myself. My name is Adam Siegel, and I am a wedding filmmaker. I'm a wedding cinematographer. I go to weddings with digital cameras, not film cameras, and I take footage and then I bring it back and I put everything together, kind of like a puzzle. I guess you could say I'm an artist of sorts. All right, let's just call it what it is. I'm a wedding videographer. And I'm proud of that. Pardon my French, but I am. You see, I never went to film school. I didn't have any family members who were photographers. And I actually thought the entire wedding industry was a crock of In fact, before I got into this business, my wife and I eloped in our own living room. But now, I make a great living filming primarily weddings. I went from being a CNN tour guide in 2010, making roughly $28,000 a year, to now owning and operating a six-figure video production business that has grown every single year since its 2011 inception. Okay, full disclaimer, 2020 affected me, as it did most of the wedding industry. Took a big hit, but through all the knowledge I gained filming weddings over the years, I was able to pivot into commercial video work to supplement much of the lost wedding video income. And I still ended up having my third best year since starting my business. So how did a guy who thought the entire wedding industry was a crock and never had picked up a video camera go on to create a successful wedding video company? That's a story for chapter 2. Let's start at the beginning. December 2nd, 1980, Silver Spring, Maryland. It was a cold, wintry day, and that's probably too far back. From a fairly young age, I always knew I wanted to have my own business. What that business was a mystery. In college, my dad encouraged me to major in philosophy. He told me it would teach me how to think. And after 5 glorious years at the University of Maryland, I now had a philosophy degree and was ready to enter the real world. Unfortunately, there were no philosophy companies hiring. So I decided to go down south, sandy beaches and warm sun of Charleston, South Carolina. There I was able to secure a job as a golf caddy on the ocean course at Kiowa Island. One day, 6 months into my caddying career, I met a guy who worked for a national home builder, Pulte Homes. The year was 2005, and the housing boom of the early 2000s was still in full force. The guy told me that they were opening a new community in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was encouraged to apply for a sales position there. Not having any other prospects on the horizon and the opportunity to make good money in the can't-miss housing market, I decided to try my hand at it. And much to my surprise, I got the position. In hindsight, a well-trained monkey could have done what I was doing. Basically, customers would come in, they'd look for a model home, they'd find one they liked, we'd go out and find a lot, they'd tell me they want to put the house on that lot, we'd write a contract, and then I'd get paid absurd commissions. It was great. A year and a half into this, I still had this itch to have my own business. Luckily for me, I'd saved up enough money in that year and a half that I was able to quit Pulte Homes and try my hand at an online business. Well, the business failed miserably and the housing market crashed. Oops. So, still not having any skills, I was forced to look for a job again. Only the housing market was dead. Since I was in sales, I decided to try my hand at other sales jobs. But the real sales world was a lot different. What would happen to me now that I actually had to sell stuff instead of just taking orders? That is a story for chapter 3. Several things happened to me over the next couple years. First of all, I bounced around sales jobs like a kangaroo on the Australian plain. I hated them. Actually, hate isn't even the right word. I abhorred them. And I was also terrible at them. The low point in my new sales career came when I got a job working for a new startup internet company. We were selling internet out of a box. We were told to set up pop-up tents in busy parking lots and accost innocent people just trying to go to lunch. One day, as I went to set up my tent in a busy parking lot, 2 other salespeople rolled up. Apparently, this was a very popular place. The lady to my left was selling Mary Kay out of a van, and the gentleman to my right was selling pit bull puppies out of the back of his pickup truck. I quit the next day. After that, I had a few other sales jobs doing business-to-business type sales. I thought I'd be more professional, but it still sucked, and I was still terrible at it. It became blatantly obvious that I was just not meant to be a salesman. During this period, however, two really good things happened. One was that I married my amazing wife. Despite my lack of direction in the job world, she still loved me and was even willing to marry me. She deserves a medal. Many medals, actually, but I digress. The other cool thing that happened to me during this time was that I found a fun new hobby. Being unemployed and bouncing between jobs has its perks. And one of those is lots of free time. In between jobs and while my wife was at work, I started using her little Canon Elph camera to make short little videos. Facebook was starting to become popular and YouTube had recently become mainstream, so tons of home videos were flooding the internet. I was bored and it was something to do. One day I saw a Facebook advertisement for a unique employment opportunity in Australia. The job was the island caretaker, and the winning candidate would live a life of luxury on the beach and making $150,000. This was the job for me. Candidates were told to submit a video application explaining why they should be the island caretaker. So I used my wife's trusty Canon Elph and Windows Movie Maker to create the following video showing why I was the perfect candidate for the island reef job. Can I entertain? I consider myself somewhat of a novice actor.
G'day, mate. I'm the island caretaker. From the future.
Needless to say, I didn't make the cut, but it did teach me my very first lesson in video editing, and I really liked it. I liked the creative process, the satisfaction from putting a bunch of little clips together and putting in music and creating a final piece. It was fun. I began making lots of ridiculous videos and putting them on YouTube with the hopes of becoming a viral star until one day my wife informed me we were about to run out of money and I needed to go out and get a real job again, and preferably one I could stay at longer than 3 months. We were living in Atlanta at the time and CNN happened to have their headquarters there. There was an opening for a tour guide position and I thought that sounded pretty cool. The pay was terrible, but I figured I'd get my foot in the door and see where it took me. Well, I got the job, and it did take me to a whole new place, but not with CNN. Working for CNN as a tour guide was great. My coworkers were all fun, creative people. I didn't have to sell anything, and I got to lead tour groups behind the scenes of a major news network to see how the entire operation worked. Many of my new coworkers also happened to be interested in video production. I got to share my newfound hobby with them and asked all sorts of questions. Some of these guys actually went to film school. Between tours, we would hang out in the break room and watch YouTube videos. I would ask how certain things were being done and they would explain. I also learned that almost every question I had about video production could be answered through a simple Google search. One day, our tour department purchased a JVC GY-HM100U video camera for any of us to use so we could practice. CNN was big on internal development, and they knew that some of the tour guides wanted to get into the video world in the news department. I now had access to a real video camera. This was amazing. I ended up using that video camera more than anyone else in the tour department. And each time I used it, I would learn a little bit more. I was growing to love this newfound hobby more and more. But how would I apply this into something where I could actually make money? And then, as chance would have it, a coworker in the tour department was getting married. She knew about my newfound passion for video and asked if I would film her wedding. The budget was $200, which I gladly accepted. My first real paying gig. I looked up how to film a wedding video and stumbled across a random company. DSLRs were just coming onto the scene as a cool new way to shoot video, as were affordable sliders. The first clip I saw was a slider shot with a Canon 5D Mark II with the aperture wide open, making the background all blurry. It looked like the movies. My jaw hit the ground. I watched every video on this company's site. Then I saw their prices. My jaw hit the ground again. Then I saw their calendar for what they had booked throughout the rest of the year. I did some rough calculations and figured out what they were making from filming weddings. And right then and there, at that moment, I decided I was going to be a wedding videographer. So I had my first gig. I was able to use the JVC camera from CNN and it went great. Granted, expectations from a $200 wedding video were probably not that high, but the couple loved it. And 2 months later, another coworker was getting married. They liked the work I did and hired me to film their wedding as well. That wedding was filmed in November of 2010, and it also went great. For my birthday in December, generous family members got me gift cards to Best Buy because I now have my eyes set on my first DSLR camera. I had just enough in gift cards to get the Canon T2i and a $100 50mm lens. I could now get shallow depth of field and make videos look like they did in the movies. It wasn't long after my second wedding that I was able to book my first non-coworker wedding. This felt like a real gig. I charged them $500. From that wedding, other referrals came in and I slowly increased my prices. With each wedding filmed, I learned more and gained more confidence. Within 8 months of that first wedding I shot, I had now raised my prices to start at $1,000. It felt surreal. Of course, I was still working as a tour guide at CNN, but all I could think about was filming weddings now. One day I realized I had enough bookings where I thought I could at least match what I was making at CNN as a tour guide. My wife worked for Delta, so we had health insurance through her, and we didn't have a child yet, so our responsibilities were limited. We both really liked the idea of moving to Charleston, South Carolina to be closer to the beach and some of my family. So in June of 2011, we took a huge chance, packed up our things, said goodbye to our friends, and moved to Charleston. I was on my own, no longer working for the man. Siegel Films was born. The excitement that comes with starting a new business is indescribable. Of course, there were doubts and fears, but all my life I had wanted my own business, and suddenly I had the opportunity to make it happen. I truly felt like the only thing between me and success was my willingness to learn and to hustle. The first thing I did was to email every wedding planner in Charleston. But I didn't just email them saying, hey, I'm new to town and do weddings, can you give me some business? I came up with a well thought out email and offered the wedding planners something in return. Of course, they would have to see your work and make sure you're delivering something with enough quality they could recommend you. And I wasn't going to be able to get in with certain wedding planners no matter what. I was still brand new to the business, and even though my work was improving, I had a lot to learn. But there's a bride for every budget. A few of the wedding planners agreed to meet me and even started referring me, and I still have great relationships with many of them 10 years later. At this point, I had two packages, a $1,200 package and a $1,600 package. We had moved to Charleston in the summer, so I had a half year's salary from CNN. I had 6 weddings on the book for the rest of the year at an average cost of $1,400. With half a year to go, I needed to make $14,000 to match what would have been my CNN salary. I also determined that I now needed someone to help me part of the day shooting weddings. I met a guy who was willing to help. We worked out a deal where I would pay him $300 for 8 hours of work for every wedding he helped me with. The 6 weddings I had already booked were a perfect mix of the $1,200 package and the $1,600 package, so I assumed an average of $1,400 revenue per wedding minus $300 for the help, so $1,100 profit. Half the year left, so I needed to make $14,000 in profit. 14,000 divided by 1,100 is 12.72 weddings. I rounded up to 14 weddings, assuming there would be some unforeseen costs I hadn't thought of. With 6 weddings already booked, I only needed 8 more to get my 14, and then at least we were matching what I would have made from CNN, so I knew we could survive. I ended up filming 21 weddings that first year in business. Not only that, I also shot a bat mitzvah and got hooked up with a court reporting company that needed part-time work filming depositions. The last 6 months of 2011, my profit was roughly the same amount as my entire annual income from CNN the year before. It was awesome. But as excited as I was, I knew this was only the beginning and there was going to be so many challenges along the way. And we were about to enter winter, which in the wedding industry in Charleston is roughly the same feeling the villagers in Game of Thrones experienced when the White Walkers came back from the dead. Oh yeah, my wife was also 6 months pregnant with our first child. Game on. Yeah, I know, I skipped a lot of in-between, building the business and launching this YouTube channel. But I gotta leave some stuff for future episodes. So why am I creating this YouTube channel? The answer to that is simple. I have a passion and a desire to make more money. Seriously, that's the real answer. Hopefully you, the viewer, get the opportunity to learn something, or at the very least be entertained. And I genuinely would love the opportunity to give back to the industry, to people coming in and thinking about starting their business, because so much of what I learned came from YouTube videos when I was first getting into this. What will this channel be about exactly? I'm not really sure. I imagine it will evolve and change as time goes on. But the main focus will be wedding video education, and for people of all levels. Those thinking about getting into the wedding industry, those who have been here for a year or two, and even some of you veterans out there. I don't have all the answers, and I'm certainly not the best wedding videographer, but I do have a cool story and I have a lot to share. And I'm running a successful business, and I still have free time and autonomy I never thought possible. And I'm happy and satisfied. I continue to learn more each year. Last year tested our industry in ways we never could have conceived of. And for those who weather the storm, we're going to come out stronger than ever. Anyway, I hope you found something useful in this video, or at the very least cracked a smile. I'll leave you with this. Inspirational words from one of the greatest authors of the 20th century, Theodore Geisel, better known as Dr. Seuss. You're off to great places. Today's your day. The mountain is waiting, so get on your way.
Good morning! This is a follow-up from how to do a high kick, because I've got many viewers asking me. Actually, nobody. But, in some alternate universe, maybe, many viewers are wondering, okay, so you did the high kick and you did it to perfection, but, how do you do a flying knee? Great question, great question. We're going to start off similarly to how we did a flying high kick by getting pumped up. Bounce it out a little bit. Bounce it out. Bounce it out. So for the flying knee, you want to get plenty of room. You want to make sure your opponent is about 30 feet from you, because you need a running start to get the proper torque. So you want to make sure that your opponent, if you're about to engage, tell him to wait so you can walk back to get in the proper position. Here we go. After you've completed the flying knee and rendered your opponent unconscious, you want to wipe your hands clean and walk away, because you've completed your mission. Don't wait around for him to wake up and gloat, okay? He'll realize that he messed with the wrong jiu-jitsu master. I'm Adam Siegel, and that's how you do a flying knee.